Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the ITSM Crowd. My name's Claire Agata, and I'm the lead tutor for ITSM Zone, and I'm joined by some of our panel of virtual mentors. These are all service management industry experts who very kindly share their knowledge through these hangouts and also provide support to our delegates who are taking training courses. This week we are taking a bit of a timely look at what was good in the world of service management in 2015, and we're also going to talk about maybe what's going to be hot in 2016 as well, so any kind of emerging topics or things that we think you should keep an eye out. So we've got three guests with us tonight, and I'm going to ask them all to introduce themselves. So working from left to right on my screen, Randy, if you want to say hello first, please.
Hi, Randy Steinberg with Concurrency, and basically I've been in the IT service management industry for probably a good 15 years, and IT operations even before that, but basically work with a lot of clients around the world, just helping them with their service management solutions in various aspects.
Lovely, thank you, Randy. Simone?
Wow, well, I'm not even going to mention the number of years. I take that privilege, but it's a long time. You know, I'm a master trainer with ITpreneurs as well, and of course mentoring with you, Claire, and taking lots of your courses because I really like them. And you know, and I do work lots of clients all around the world. Whether it's consulting and, of course, the various training, the different frameworks and things like that. Just been around a long time and love to keep learning all about it.
Fantastic, thank you. And Steve?
Hi everyone, I'm Steve Morgan. I'm Director of Cinead IT. I'm a service management nearly said expert, specialist, I guess, but the thing that really gets my interest is around SIAM. So I'm chair of the SIAM Special Interest Group for the ITSMF in the UK, as well as, in common with Randy and Simone, working with clients with really complicated and hairy service management and SIAM issues around the world.
Sounds interesting. Some good days you have, I bet. Thank you very much. Just to mention as well, if you've got any questions, if you want to ask the panel anything, or you've got any comments on what we're discussing tonight, if you post them on Twitter with the hashtag ITSM Crowd, we'll be keeping an eye on that as we're talking, and if you do have questions, we can respond to them live as well. So really, I guess this is a good chance to look back at 2015. There has been a lot of change within the service management world. For those of us who've been in service management for a while and remember when it was just ITIL really and not a lot more, we seem to be kind of drowning in Agile, Scrum, Lean, Kanban, DevOps. There's so much going on. So really I'd like to ask the guests on the panel, what have been the big things for you in 2015? What have been the really significant changes in the world of service management?
Okay, well, if I could start, I think all the things you just mentioned around DevOps and Agile especially are really piquing the interest of a lot of IT organizations, and I'm increasingly getting into companies where on the operational side, there's a lot of interest in terms of what is the impact to us in terms of managing through those types of disciplines. And it's very interesting because a lot of the information this year especially, it was geared more towards the development community on tools and types of solutions that are available. But on the operation side, there's a lot of concern. What does this mean for managing change management, for example, or what does this mean for release management? Does this mean that all heck will break loose in terms of releases and things like that? And so there's a lot of interest in learning more about that and developing ways to deal with that.
Yeah, I think there's just picking up on that point, especially around the change side. I mean, I think that it's not, there's some new frameworks obviously worth mentioning as well, but I think there's been a lot of evolution going on and updating with the frameworks themselves. So I think there's a lot more marrying going on between the frameworks, a lot more of people realizing that it's not just one or the other. I think there's a greater awareness now that it's actually a toolbox of techniques.
I'm so glad you said that, Simone. I was just about to say the same words myself. It is a toolbox. You're quite right.
Yeah, and I think that's part of, the other things that are picking up a lot on, for example, SPHERE, the Skills Framework for Information Age. So, there are certain skills that are now having to develop. So roles of CIOs are shifting, roles of service desk analysts are shifting, new skill sets are coming in, and I think that's why there's also been these other frameworks coming together more. People are having to broaden their recipe book a little bit more. I know it's been a very big personal learning year for myself.
Yeah, and I think this kind of speaks to the fact that maybe putting things like SPHERE to one side, that there still isn't this kind of sense of a career path for people who are in the kind of the service management field. So it used to be really, really easy to think, oh, well, I'll do my ITIL foundation. If you were V2, I'll maybe do a practitioner, or I'll do my managers. But now that this year in particular, there just seems to have been an explosion of training courses and certifications. And I think for your typical IT service management practitioner, it can be a bit overwhelming thinking, well, what do I need now to get me to the next step of my career?
I did see today, looked into it a bit more deeply. Axelos actually put onto their website that new career pathing, profiling the roles.
Yes.
And I think that that's worthy of people having a look at, especially if you're not sure where you want to take your career and that kind of thing. But I think it also then enables you, if you're reading the profiles, enables you to understand a little bit better what are the skill sets that you're going to be needing coming into, 2016 and beyond.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the SIAM stuff has been really interesting this year. We've stopped talking about SIAM as a theory and started practicing some SIAM work in real clients and learning from that.
Can you just quickly summarise SIAM for people who maybe haven't come across it before?
Yeah, sure. Service integration and management, and basically it's at the moment a fairly loose framework model for managing multiple vendors. So typically, as organizations migrate away from the monolithic contracts that they may well have had over the last 5 years or so, and move to a smarter sourcing model where they have multiple vendors, then SIAM has emerged as a what do you do with all the overarching management of that, from service management through to commercial contract management, finance, and so on. So we're not quite there yet in documenting exactly what it all means, but that's loosely the context.
I mean, I would see that's where the career paths will eventually lead to, because if you look at IT in general, it is just exploding with all kinds of technologies and services, and the typical business solution nowadays, rather than being monolithic, is a combination of many, many different pieces and parts from many different places. So the ability to pull all of that together is just going to be absolutely critical, and I think a lot of companies even now are struggling with that in many different ways.
Yeah, I think you're right, Randy, and I think that whilst SIAM had been predominantly a UK public sector thing, it's becoming more global and spreading across private sector organisations now as well. And I'm certainly witnessing that from the clients that I'm now dealing with. It's really mushroomed.
I think one of the things I found really interesting for 2015, this is my second year living in Europe now, and this year alone I've been to 8 new countries that I've never been to before, which is quite a lot actually in one year to be in 8 different countries. But there's a real, and whether that was for conferencing, some of it was to conduct training, etc., and other projects. But what I found really interesting is they still all ask for the same things. You know, there are the nuances and the cultural differences that come in their way of working, which I think then does impact the way in which they take on the frameworks and any training that they have. But you know, for example, ITIL practitioner, there's big buzz because that's due for release in February. And one of the things that I'm really liking about that is that it is about the practitioner aspect. So where do we go with all these frameworks and the training where we make things more practical? You know, Resilia as well, it doesn't just have the foundation. Resilia practitioner is now coming out for the cybersecurity side of things. And I think that's been a big shift in 2015. They've actually yes, they've recognised theory is still really important because you have to have the knowledge, but now can we now extend into having training that gives us the ability to use that knowledge. And Randy, you mentioned it earlier, a lot around organisational change, and that's one of the things I like about ITIL practitioner, because one of the three core competencies, you know, you've got your organisational change management is part of it, communication, so there's two complete soft skills, you know, that are part of that, and of course measurement and metrics, which some people can say are logical because you have to, you know, you're counting things, whichever way that might be, whether it the qualitative or quantitative, but it's all about having the right information and making the right decisions. So I think Resilia is also on its way to doing the same kind of thing in helping companies look at risk management as well. That it's all people, but we're finally getting stuff meaty, you know, things that we can give people that, you know, they can take it away with them and do something with it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we've already mentioned kind of ITIL practitioner, Resilia, DevOps, SIAM. There has been a lot going on this year, but are we still kind of coming back to the same question, which is this just because people aren't happy with the IT service that they're getting, or they don't trust the IT service that they're getting? Are we just looking for the right answer to the same question, do you think, maybe?
I think the question's changing all the time, so we're constantly evolving these practices. So I think, you know, ITIL started on that evolutionary path, but as Randy's already pointed out, you know, things got a lot more complex now with, you know, multiple service providers, DevOps, Agile, and all that kind of stuff. So I think that I'm not necessarily convinced that it's down to a deep-seated dissatisfaction, but it's more a quest for the answer. But the question keeps changing, and it's, you know, the business and IT and consultants and service providers like ourselves that will continue trying to sort of push that envelope.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's been noticeable as well, I think, is that the kind of the pace is changing as well. I mean, if you think of the hype curve, the Gartner hype curve that you know they've kind of mapped ITIL against. So did we have peak ITIL maybe a couple of years ago? What's happening with it now? But SIAM seems to have gone through that hype curve almost in 6 months. You've gone from people saying, what is SIAM, to saying, oh, SIAM looks quite interesting. And then I think a couple of weeks ago you have an article on LinkedIn that says, you know, SIAM's a hoax, it's useless, it's nothing. And that hype curve has just been incredibly fast, I guess, and things are speeding up.
I think it will be cyclical, though. I thought the SIAM is a hoax thing was great because it surfaced some issues and a lot of hype around SIAM itself, and it really galvanized a lot of people on the Back to ITSM Facebook group that were really sort of trying to put their own points of view and try and get the point across. I thought the article itself is probably a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but some of the responses, people really took it to heart, which was hilarious. I thought it was great, and it did actually try and further the conversation. However kind of inflammatory it might have been seen by, I think it was a really good way of getting the conversation on, just by, you know, putting a stick through the bars and giving the animals a poke inside, you know, and seeing what reaction you got. I thought it was a great idea.
I think it's happening for a lot. Randy, how, you know, are you seeing, have the questions changed? Or is it people are actually, they're genuinely curious now, and so they're getting smarter about what they're looking at?
I think it's a positive evolution that people are getting smarter about this. In this year alone, I don't know what the term is, if it's IT service awareness or whatever, but the concept of I can't just go out there and buy technologies and throw them out there seems to be a lot less than what I've seen in past years. And a lot of engagements I've been working with the clients literally have started out with, they say, I know that I need to be looking at service management. I know that I need to be considering the big picture as we put this into place. What are the processes? What are the organization roles and responsibilities in addition to the technologies? And I'm seeing more and more of that than I ever have before. And the surprising thing this year, I know Claire mentioned organizational change management. For the first time this year, there's at least 5 or 6 clients I've been at where they brought that up and said, we need to make this part of our solution stream. Whereas in the past, I always felt like we were just kind of pushing that on people, or at least trying to make them aware of that. So there seems, at least in my opinion, a very big push more towards a true service management solution as they put their solutions into place. And they may not know all the answers to these. They may be still looking at all these other solutions that are out there, and frameworks and standards and things like that. But the fact is that the awareness, to me at least, seems to be much more than it ever has in the past. So I see this as very positive as time goes on.
I agree, Andy. I just had an organisation who bought the staff in the change program a copy of Kotter's Change Principles book each, and left it on their desk, which I thought was great. Bearing in mind, how many years do we bang the drum about the importance of organisational change, and then you get a client that says, "Hey guys, you've got to read this and understand the principles within it." Not that it's the final say on the matter, but it's a great place to start, right?
Yeah, it does have a real positive vibe, doesn't it, this year? I think, when you look back over those changes, to have the client actually tell you instead of the other way around, it's almost like a Christmas miracle.
Now the struggle they're going to have is, how do I connect the Kotter and the generalized principles to what it is they're trying to get done? And I'm finding that I am doing a lot more work now with clients in terms of, how do I establish communication campaigns and plan events for communication and manage stakeholders and all those things that you need to do to kind of get everybody on board, beyond just the typical training that you would expect. And that's, I see where the struggle is right now. It's like, well, they know I need this stuff, but then how do I practically get there? How do I use this to
practitioner, all that stuff coming in. That I guess I can't help it. That's one of the I think, and we're all the same. We've been in the industry a long time. The crew that's here, and the architects team, and that sort of thing that pulled that sort of stuff together. This is what people have been asking for, and to give them just to give them that ability to go out and do is such a fabulous feeling, isn't it? It's not just about giving them the theory. And I think that's why we enjoy these projects, where, as complicated as they are, that when you see that light bulb go off, whether it's in the classroom or it's in the boardroom where you're facilitating a workshop, that it's just so good to see. 2015 has had a good positive vibe. There's struggles, yes, but as you said, the awareness is there, the curiosity, the sense of that curiosity has come out again, and I think that's why we're having that positive evolution now.
Yeah, and I think that there have been some interesting new certifications in 2015. I guess the other one that's worth mentioning for people as well is the Agile Prince 2 training as well. So again, trying to bring some of these Agile principles through to kind of more traditional project management and more traditional sort of waterfall-based projects in organisations. So I think that the kind of the training side of thing is maybe it's difficult to be completely on top of the industry trends, because it takes time to kind of recognise what people want, but certainly the industry is being more adaptive, and we're seeing new certifications, things like the DevOps Foundation, that are maybe a little bit more future looking, I guess, than we have had for a while. But the other kind of big topic for me has been cybersecurity in 2015, and taking that little bit of information security management that we all used to do and exploding it, mainly based on the fact that there have been some really high profile hacks. So we've got the new Resilia product, which is the service management approach to security. But I think that the big change has been organisational awareness, and the companies that we're all working with thinking, have we got our house in order?
Well, there's a lot of, I just sat in on a session for Cybersecurity Today for Resilia, and I think that, again, organisational change and culture is through the Resilia stuff as well. So I really think that there's some really good stuff about, whose problem is it, when it comes to cybersecurity. And there's great examples. Companies like TalkTalk have had their incidents and around this, and they're also very happy and very open to talk about, with their clients as well, and use themselves as a case study to look at how important. Stop being fearful of saying, oh my God, what if we have a security incident? People won't trust us if we have one. It's more about, no, I'd rather put my money with you if I know if something happens, you're able to do something about it. That's where I think something like Resilia is so much more important to have that, how that's come out this year. So what about, guys, what are you looking forward to in 2016?
Sorry, Randy, do you want to go?
No, go ahead. I'll follow after you.
I think the thing that I found really good, I attended a webinar from Tony Price of HP on the subject of IT for IT, and I really like what they're talking about there in terms of a value chain approach to IT. I think I'm no expert on it at all, but from what I've read and from what I've heard on that, it makes a lot of sense to start talking about IT less as a group of service management processes and more about things that you need to do along along the way of developing and running a service. I'd like to see where that goes in 2016. I think it's in relatively early stages, but I've seen a lot of interest for it, so I'm really interested to learn more about that.
I mean, what I'm seeing from my end, and I'm sure this will evolve even more in 2016, is a kind of a further evolution of what we've seen this year, probably with an emphasis around things like much better service catalogs. I mean, the ones I've seen a lot out there have been just horrific, but I'm starting to see signs of better graphics, better fonts, more white space, more creativity in the design of those, but also a lot of self-service and a lot of automation. I'm just seeing tons and tons of automation starting to take play. The other big shift I see, and this is from a technology standpoint, is a lot of the service management tools, even more so, are going up into the cloud more and more, and it's almost becoming a liability as a vendor to even offer a product that the customer has to install on premises. So you're seeing a lot of big money players, such as Microsoft and HP and others, and they're making a lot of heavy investment in cloud tools around operating and managing IT infrastructures and services in general. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that come out next year. And then along with that, I see a lot more in terms of the job market, where a lot of IT organizations will be looking to hire in people with a broader set of skills. There's roughly two skill sets I see that IT was never prepared for that now are coming into play. One is a skill set around organizational change management, and understanding how people work and operate, and that is a skill set that IT historically just didn't need to have, and now it's becoming very critical. The second skill set is around, and I don't know if you call it marketing or service bundling, but being able to look at what offerings and what IT does, and then bundle that into services and package it in a manner that the business can actually consume it is another skill set that IT doesn't typically carry. So right now, historically, they've traditionally just described services in terms of what their job functions are, which of course the business doesn't understand half of that. But being able to use a lot of creativity to bundle and package that is going to become a new skill set as well, and I think we'll start to see more of that in 2016.
It's interesting what you said there, Randy, about the tooling capabilities, because I agree with you. I think the service providers are really stepping up to enhance the quality of their tools. And we talked at the beginning of this conversation about a toolbox of best practices and principles that we would apply. And I see the tools as one of the methods by which we draw all those things together. So seen some fantastic things around integrating information across multiple tool sets, multiple service providers recently, and I think that that will continue to become a massive thing in 2016 as our service models that we adopt within our clients become more and more complex. The tooling needs to adapt to do that. So I'd echo your comments there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
what are you looking forward to next year?
Well, of course, Idle Practitioner gets released in February, so for me that's like, yeah, I am. But I mean, the thing is that it's so close, it's very early in 2016, and it's still in development, and it's it's got to go through its baby steps. It's got to go through having people actually do it and feel it and feedback, and yeah, it'll evolve just like everything else. So, I mean, that's the first cab off the rank, if you like, because of the date line. But the other key things, of course, is I'm looking forward to attending some of the Europe conferences again. This year was my first experience of ITSM conferences on this side of the world, and it really did open up my eyes in so many different ways. And I think 2016 is also an exciting time for, let's say, long-termers in our industry, because just along with the new people, to get them excited, I think the long-termers, there's lots of good new things that we can experience and have in 2016 that are coming up on the conference programs I see.
Yeah, definitely, and it's kind of worth name checking ITSMF, I think, and whatever country you're in, there tends to be a chapter of ITSMF that is either in your country or somewhere close by, and it's a fantastic place to meet like-minded people, to learn about what's going on. Steve runs the SIAM Special Interest Group for ITSMF UK. Lots of good things coming out of that, and I think something that's always been good in the service management world has been community, and getting out to the conferences, getting out to meet people is a fantastic way to be part of that and kind of contribute to that.
And yeah, I've also seen other things, like the other forums pick up a lot too. I mean, the Back to ITSM group on Facebook has lots of new people have come on board in the last few months as well. That community is really strengthened as well, I believe.
Yeah. I agree, and it can strengthen best practice in itself, right? So the conversation about SIAM we were having earlier on is a great example of that. But then, that Facebook page can help to further the progression of best practice generally in service management.
Okay, we are just about out of time, I'm afraid. This has been a really good chat, and I'd like to thank our panel. I'd like to thank Randy, Simone and Steve for sharing kind of their views on what's been popular in 2015. Has been a really interesting year. There's been a lot going on, and 2016 I think is going to be exactly the same. So for the service management world, it really is a case of watch this space. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you if you've joined us and you've been watching us live, and we'll see you all again next year when we bring the ITSM crowd back.
Bon
Thank you
effet.
very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.